Kyle Adams, aka Captain Spish. She knew I helped dogs and saved their lives. That's confidence and strength in the dog world.
Teach me, oh wise one.
Because nothing learns through punishment. It learns through reward. And a lot of times I'm dealing with dogs no one else will help.
Oh my.
Every dog should have these basic skills.
Yeah, I mean, trust seems like the biggest step for any of this.
You defeat the energy. You pop that bubble of anxiety. We know you're scared. Here's what you do about your fear. That's true power in the dog world.
And intro.
Hello, welcome to Captain Spish Dog Behavior Podcast. I'm Kyle, aka Captain Spish, and I'm here with Tommy.
Yeah, you could just call me First Mate T-Tom at this point.
First Mate T-T-O-M-M-Y.
You forgot the period. Don't misspell my name again. Mutiny.
Yeah, the period is a official part of the name.
T-period T-O-M-M-Y. That's how you spell it.
I always called you T-Tommy.
Well, I mean, you can call me whatever you want. Just don't call me an a-hole.
It's smoother. T-Tommy.
Yeah, all about that smooth.
So, in this episode, we're going to be speaking about what is the difference between a trainer and a behavior expert.
Yeah, because I've got no clue. I mean, that's kind of why I'm here, though.
Is there a difference?
Or are they the same?
Yeah, answer me.
I mean, they're probably not the same. I mean, otherwise there wouldn't be an episode called "What's the Difference?"
Yeah, well, it's versus. It's Captain Spish versus trainers. It's training versus behavior. What is the difference? Is there a difference? And I guess the opinions will vary, and I'm just going to give my take on it, of course, since this is my podcast.
Well, I mean, but we welcome all opinions and comments about the subject matter.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll change my mind. I'm open to that. New information, new brain. But, yeah, so basically we use similar techniques. Positive reinforcement is the only way to go. Like, brains learn through reward, not punishment. Punishment doesn't make sense when it comes to trying to condition or teach anything with a brain. And what I mean by that is that, punishment is an emotional response. It's retaliation. It's, you did something that made me upset, I'm going to get you back for it. And what does anyone have to learn from that except for you're a jerk?
I don't know. I think my parents would speak otherwise on that.
Well, people mix up punishment with discipline and make them synonymous, and they're not. Mm-hmm. Discipline is to have a message, to give a point across. Don't do that. Like, it's not good for you, or it's not good for the group, or for, as a whole. But here's what you do instead. So discipline to me always has a do this. Here's a positive. Here's what you should do. As opposed to just a don't or stop. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it has both. Don't do that. Look to me, and let's go do this other thing. And when you feel this way, or this situation happens, or this object is present, here's what you do or don't do about that object, and that has the best outcomes. And to me, that's a crude positive reinforcement, kind of in a nutshell. Mm-hmm. And that's how we're gonna have to deal with dogs, whether they have an emotional issue or an inappropriate reaction, an instinctual reaction. Right. That's the best way to describe it.
All right. So, well then, for a start, let's go ahead and start with this, with training. In your opinion, what is the definition of training?
Oh, definition? I don't know if I get into a definition of it.
Well, I don't necessarily mean definition, but in the dog world here. Yeah. With it, what is training to you?
I see training as the house, like the functional bits. To me, a trainer, in my experience, they want to have the body do or don't do something. They want to help you give the dog behaviors and actions that are tools, basically, in your toolbox to have that dog behave in the way you want it to behave in a certain situation. But that doesn't necessarily directly translate to helping a dog with an emotional issue or a mental problem. Mm-hmm. So to me, there's a deeper reach for that the foundation is a stable mind and a stable relationship, both in the people and in the animal. And it's mutual communication. It's To trainers, a good trainer listens as well as teaches and tells the dog what to do and not to do, and they dabble and connect into behavior work. Just the same as a behavior expert is going to reach a point where they have to redirect the dog into a training situation and do some training to redirect a behavior into a training task, because that's really what training is: teaching tasks, reactions, interactions, and tasks. But behavior, I'm more concerned about why the dog is doing what they're doing and what they're moving forward with, what mentality they're using while they're doing a certain thing. So it's a little bit more based and foundational. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's the difference between training and behavior. As I care about what the heart and mind is in the dog, and then how that's influencing the handler and vice versa. The handler, owner, whatever you want to call them. And that's kind of what my main concern is. Like, are you both listening to each other? Are you both reacting appropriately? And if you act inappropriately, what do we do about that? Mm-hmm. And how to redirect. So if a dog is understood and listened to, like genuinely understood, that in of itself is going to help solve a lot of behavioral issues. Because a lot of them come from an impulse control issue and fear or anxiety problems that lead them to fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. And that, defeats thinking. Mm-hmm. It really is the mind killer.
So when you go to work with a dog, you primarily are a behavioralist, as you would say, and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
behavior expert or behavior consultant. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, consultant does.
I won't call myself a behaviorist because it comes with an implication that you're a PhD behavioralist or a veterinary behavioralist, and that's certainly not what I do. To me, a PhD behavioralist or a veterinary behaviorist is kind of like a psychiatrist, where they can prescribe drugs along with behavioral therapy. Mm-hmm. I'm more the psychologist, like the therapist, that help you talk it out, ask the right questions, think through your problems, how to manage through behavioral therapy and understanding.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and that makes me a little curious, just because I don't know. Do they actually have, like, I don't want to say psychotic, but do they have, like, medicine for dogs to take like they would for a human being who has mental issues or is having behavioral issues? I mean, do they have something like that for dogs to take?
Well, yeah. Disclaimer, I don't know everything about it because I'm not a vet and this isn't advice. But yeah, they a lot of times the dogs take the exact same medication as a person would for the same problem.
Okay.
And sometimes they take different ones, and of course it's dosed differently. But yeah, they have things that can help a lot of dogs that have anxiety. So when a client calls me, the first thing I do is try to get to know the person a little bit, hear what the problem is, and listen. And then most people, if not everyone, I'll ask, have you gone to an actual veterinarian and sought if there is a medical cause, for this behavioral issue? Because a lot of behavior issues can be connected to pain, thyroid problems, endocrine system issues, stuff like that. So irregularities that can be treated through medication or other treatments or surgery, and to me, that's a better outcome instead of throwing a bunch of, hey, your dog, deal with your feelings at it versus you're in pain and that can be helped, So I've helped a lot of clients' dogs save their dogs' lives, even when I've been like, well, I'm not a vet, but that when I've seen dogs behave this way, the way you're describing it, it was, bone cancer or a liver problem or a kidney issue or
so
a thyroid
that kind
issue.
Of thing, you direct them to maybe get checked out by a vet first before most clients get a hold of you.
Yeah, most clients I say, go get a blood test, go talk to your vet, see what they advise about if there is anything that could cause this behavioral issue that's medical, and what's the next step, like what should we test first. Mm-hmm. And because there's a lot of times I just step into the if it were me shoes, like, well, in my experience, if it were I, and this is me in your situation, I would do this for my dog. But, obviously I can't give medical advice.
No. It's good
short of go get medical advice.
It's like, maybe you ought to go see somebody who's not me.
Sure, and I'm not against that. I haven't come into a case where I couldn't help, based on my own knowledge. But if I ever did, or if I thought I needed to talk to someone, I would tell the people, well, this is kind of hitting a wall where of my knowledge, and I think this is a situation I've never seen before, and I need to confer with some colleagues, um, or refer them to someone else like a vet or a trainer. And I have referred people to different trainers. I haven't found any I really like, but there's some that get the job done. And
Okay.
so there's a point with some behavior problems I deal with that. Hey, we now you understand your dog, thanks to my coming out and explaining to you the instincts that are being inappropriate here, and how you can manage those or at least redirect them or prevent the situation. And now that you're more stable and less unsure and more sure about what you're going to do with your dog and the problem they have, now it's a good time to go into to training. So now you have a foundation that's starting to become very steady and strong. Let's
Hmm.
build a house. Let's make it more functional. Let's help, because the more you can tell the dog what to do instead of what their instincts tell them to do, then that's kind of solves the behavioral issue. So the energy they have that going towards fear and anxiety, they put towards going to sit for you somewhere that makes them feel safe because they're doing something for you. And when a dog obeys their leader, which is like a fancy way of saying parent,
Hmm.
because to me, a dog leader, if you're a leader in the dog world, you're like a parent. You care about everybody, everyone's feelings, how that influences the family as a whole and each other, and that everyone gets along and is safe, and everyone has functions, and responsibilities, and that you keep that perspective, that upper perspective of what's going on mechanically with everyone, instead of being pulled down and being part
Hmm.
of, being another pack member. You're going to be something that sees what the pack members are doing to each other and to you, and how you can influence that positively.
Okay.
And so yeah, once we do all that, and then having trainers teach all those little things like shake my hand and jump and spin and sit and stay, and so the four behaviors I think training aspects that all dogs should learn will come, sit, stay, and drop it.
Hmm.
Because if they'll come to you, then they're not likely to run off and get hit, right, or lost.
Yeah.
If they'll stay when there's a situation where you're distracted and they're off leash and there's an emergency, they're not as likely to get involved in the emergency and get hurt or make it worse. Um, so it's come, sit, and stay. And then if they drop whatever they pick up, they're less likely to poison themselves or to kill an animal, because if they drop it, so those are the four things that all dogs should know. All training things that dogs should know. Cues,
Hmm.
commands, whatever you want to call them, and be solid as possible with them. And to me, that's all that a pet dog needs to know. Anything beyond that's for fun. And certain dogs need more tasks. They need to learn more tricks because they'll be happier, like German shepherds and higher class working dogs. Any kind of shepherd, Australian shepherd, cattle dogs. They need to be directed, but yet work autonomously. So teaching them, training them behaviors that they can do autonomously and automatically, but yet are triggered by you or slightly managed by you. Like, now let's turn left here and then come to me over here and give me this thing now. Um, that makes those dogs happy, and that helps with behavior because it makes them less bored and anxious and keeps their brain from wandering maybe to
Hmm.
places it shouldn't. Because that's what happens with smart dogs. Their minds absorb too much information. Um, they don't know quite how to process all of it, but they know they're getting a lot of information, and if they're not told what to do about that information or just what not to do or what their function is, they get a lot of anxiety, which leads to a lot of fear, and then fear, fight, flight, fawn, freeze,
Hmm.
and all those things can be problematic in the wrong situation. Um, and that can lead to that being a behavioral issue, a fear problem.
Yeah. So, as a dog behavioralist and whatnot, are you keen to training at all? Like, do you have an issue training if somebody asks you to, or do you have enough patience to really sit there? And I don't know which one would require more patience, the training or behavioral aspect of it.
Oh,
Um,
patience, like with the dog or the client or both.
Probably both. Like, if somebody's like, "Oh, hey, you did such a great job with my dog. Can you train it to do this now?" Like,
Um, I think my biggest problem is that, in my experience with my situation, how I have my business set up, I don't have the time to do the very monotonous and repetitive task of helping teach people to do obedience.
Mm-hmm.
and that's its own challenge. So those people are awesome in their own right, and I just don't want to step on their toes. In this situation, I think specialization makes sense. That trainers shouldn't try to be behavior experts, like and be a trainer, and the same thing, behavior experts shouldn't try to be a trainer and a behavior
So
expert.
that's one you kind of just try to
Yeah,
keep your hands out
I
of.
think we should realize we're not in competition with each other. Even if, in my opinion, there's no real such thing as competition, even in the field. Like other behaviorists, I'm fine with them existing and working on the same block as me because there's plenty of dogs that need help, and that's what this is about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm able to pay my bills, so I have no reason to badmouth anybody or put anyone down or care that they're in business because we're all here for the same job, or we should be. And same thing with trainers. So to me, um, good trainers refer people to good behavioralists when there's a genuine behavior issue, and vice versa. That good behaviorists refer people to good trainers when that stage of the development of the dog comes about. And to me, there's sometimes certain behavior problems are also a training issue, and there's kind of a gray area. So I'll go out with things to help dogs with potty training issues and things like that if they've tried other training techniques and stuff, because I have ways that I can kind of tweak what they're
Mm-hmm.
doing, and I'm going into their home, which a lot of trainers don't. Some do nowadays, but come into the home and show them ways. Well, here's how you clean up the spot, and here's where you should keep the puppy and or the dog. Adult dogs sometimes have potty training issues, and sometimes I notice well, it's not truly a potty training issue. There's a behavior aspect, like severe anxiety. So when a dog is very anxious or stressed, the brain knows that, well, peeing feels good and you are really, really stressed right now. You're
Mm-hmm.
reaching critical mass. And the best way that the brain could have an emergency blow off valve is to pee, to release some feelings and make them feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that relieves stress. So the brain will bypass the dog's conscious control of their pee and just make them pee. And they don't have any control over it. It just because it gets so stressed and upset. And I've had to explain that to clients. Well, they're not doing this on purpose. They have no control over it. It's the same thing as if you touch a hot stove. You're not going to be able to choose whether you keep your hand there or not. Your brain's like, screw this, and yoink.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with a dog that has such stress or anxiety has to pee.
Mm-hmm.
Small dogs are guilty of it more than big dogs, but they have smaller bladders. They have higher internal body pressure. A lot of things that make it harder for them to hold their potty, especially when their emotions get high. It's not always negative emotions. Talk to anyone with an anxiety issue. Stress can be caused by good things as much as anything bad. Not all stress is because, oh no, I might die, or something bad's
Not
going to
all
happen.
stress is bad stress.
Yeah, not all anxiety. Well, stress is bad regardless, but it doesn't always come from a bad thing, like
Mm-hmm.
knowing a rainstorm's coming or you're going to go to the vet. Sometimes it's like, oh no, we're going to go to the dog park, and I know how exciting that is, and blah, blah, blah. And their energy and their anxiety goes up, and then the stress comes.
Yeah, I tend to pee a lot when I find out I got to go to the vet and whatnot. It kind of bothers me a little bit.
They got some big needles there, but so
Very true. So, so you don't really do any of the training aspects. I mean, like you said, you dabble a little bit if it comes to the
I
bathroom, but
will teach people how to get better at come sit stay
hmm
if necessary. If the dog's darting out the door, it's going to be practical for me to teach them how to teach the dog how to stay and how to come back to them. And then the behavior aspect comes in where it's more than just I say this and the dog does this, but showing them which a good trainer would too. Once again, that's that gray area where you can show them, well, don't chase the dog, but you also have to pursue the dog, and
hmm
that comes with the speed and intensity and the angles you're using to the dog, and when you move and when you don't move, when the dog is moving and not, and how to know when to turn around and walk away and pretend you don't care. Sometimes that gets dogs to come to you, and there's all kinds of tricks, and we're gonna have to go through the bag and see which works. Um, I've gotten dogs that ran from me in the pack by getting in my van and driving up near them and opening the door and just sitting there. There's all kinds of ways you can get a dog to come back to you, and so I just try to be very practical and hands-on and teach people real-world solutions in the moment to deal with a lot of these issues. And some trainers, well, they're good trainers. Once again, they'll do that too. So, in my opinion, the best behaviorists and the best trainers are gonna overlap a little bit, but know where it would be best to refer people to one or the other.
Now, is there a big diversity when it comes to behavioral experts? I know you could probably go, find a dog training place every 10, 20 miles, no problem. But I mean, how often do you really see somebody in the behavior field, a colleague and whatnot? And, you know, that to me, that doesn't scream as common as a trainer would. So why wouldn't we see more behavior experts than we would trainers? Or at least, kind of a middle ground, as it were.
Well, we see too many middle grounders. So a lot of behavior work, in quotations, started as behavior modification trainers. So they're obedience trainers that kind of branch into behavior work, which once again, behavior work is more about psychology and the mentality and emotions and instincts and how they, how you can rationally work through that with your dog, using certain techniques up until including training. But in my opinion, no one can do both, not well anyway. Um, and so I've told people in the past, well, if you see some of the labels themselves a behavior modification trainer, and they can tell you, well, I'll do board and train until your teach your dog come sit stay, and then I'll come out and help your dog that's biting and attacking people, you probably want to run for the hills, because those two things aren't always compatible. It's difficult to find in the same person someone that knows when to give certain advice that would be contradictory to what they would otherwise teach. Because to me, there's advice I give to somebody for a behavior issue that would go completely against what a trainer would say for the same thing, because their goals are different. The trainer cares about if the dog is backing away and coming and sitting for you, but they're not solving why the dog reacted in the first place and how you can free that dog of that prison of anxiety and yourself, and have a happier, more balanced dog that isn't so scared and anxious. And a lot of trainers will repress that behavior by redirecting it too heavily into another action, but not actually helping the dog work through that fear or anxiety or issue they have. And so that's a big difference between training and behavior. And once again, some trainers they dabble well into the edge of it than others. And the big reason why you don't see as many pure behavior experts like myself, that's all I do is behavior specialism. It's a newer field. There isn't it just a very newer field. Training had existed for centuries, and that's what everyone was called. Even people that were, in my opinion, more behavior experts than trainers, they still called themselves trainers. And if you go to Google to this very day, I can't list my business accurately. There is no behavior specialist or behavioralist or behavior consultant on there. There's trainer. So I'm dog trainer.
Your best bet is if somebody wanted to Google you to just type in your full business name, because that'd be about the only way to pull it up.
No, they can find me using trainer, but there is no search tag I can put in my profile on Google to let people know I'm a behavior expert. I have to just put it in the body of a description. I have to have a page which I need to make on my website that specifically explains, well, I'm not a trainer and here's why. And do you need come sit stay? Do you need obedience, or do you have a dog that has bitten people, that's threatened to bite people, that's biting dogs, that's not getting along, that's reacting in ways you don't understand in situations that don't make sense? Like, you need someone to come and that's the first thing I do when I come out on a consultation is evaluate. What is this dog doing and why? And then what is the approach? What is practical for these people's lifestyle and their personality and the way they think and feel, and how this particular dog and their relationship with each other is that a place that can be improved, and in what way? It's just a bunch of layers to plow through, and that's why it takes up to 2 hours to help people, because I have to get to know you, connect with you, help you know you can trust me, know that I know what I'm talking about, and be inspired by what I have to say, see that it's true and real, and then and so on and so forth.
Do you ever bring examples of other jobs that you've done when you go out on the field and whatnot? Do you have, like, here's a testimonial by such and such who I helped and whatnot? Do you have anything like that you bring out to kind of show that you know the behavior aspect?
No,
of
most
this?
people have seen those things online, like on my business page or reviews. That's stuff that people do on their own before they even call me usually. So no, I don't I don't usually go out with examples of boast. Like, oh, I do use anecdotes. I tell people, well, I've experienced this before with this other dog, and I don't usually use the humans' names. Sometimes I don't even use the dogs' names. Sometimes I don't remember either, but I do remember the situation. Well, here's what they went through. Here's how those people felt, and you're not alone. This has happened before, and we've been successful using these techniques. And you don't have to be those people. You don't have to even be me. I
Right.
don't tell clients you have to do exactly as I say and think how I think. And I just want you to understand the basics so you can genuinely respond based on who you are and your relationship with the dog. I just give you the tools to formulate
Mm.
that on your own.
You show them the way, and whether or not they adhere to that to ensure that the behavior is changed
Yeah,
or
it's
make it worse, it's up to them.
it's basically gentle parenting, which the rest of the world that's sane call parenting,
Hmm.
because there should be no other kind, but gentle parenting. But it's the listening. Listen, instead of whatever you're thinking and feeling about what the dog's doing, how about you quiet that down best you can, and see what is the dog actually trying to tell you? What is it reacting to? And I tell clients, well, your dog's not wrong. Most cases, the dog isn't wrong about how they're reading the situation. They may be blowing it out of proportion. They don't know where it's going to head, but
Hmm.
they have a reason and a right to feel and think certain things they feel and think. And we have an ability usually to influence what they're seeing, that they're feeling and thinking about, and to respect them as living beings, to have those feelings and thoughts, and respect yourself for your own feelings and thoughts, and and be responsible about what you do with them, and pay attention to what your message is, how you're coming across to that dog, and what you represent to them, so that you represent a safe place to express themselves, a safe place to ask for help, someone that is a source of answers and peace and safety. Um, and that even if you yourself are confused, you're always going to give them an answer. So, dog, I don't know what you're scared about, but how about you come to me? How about you look at me? How about you sit? How about we go and see from a distance and observe what you might be scared of, or get closer to it? Like, well, let's go. Let's be curious.
Hmm.
So, knowledge fights fear. So, if you help them learn how to be curious again and take in information and ask questions of you, ask questions of the world, sniff and see and touch and see what the worst thing could happen, and that's not that bad, they conquer those fears. And that's kind of what I teach people.
Yeah. Now I know you said you don't have anyone that you really recommend, but have you have any experience with trainers and whatnot?
Yeah, good and bad.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, give me some examples of some of the good ones and some of the bad ones you've encountered in your time.
Most of the quote bad trainers are people that are trying their best, but their experience level isn't there yet. It takes a lot of nuance and a lot of experience to learn the do's and don'ts and the best ways to convey certain information, or just be knowledgeable of certain information and nuances about training, about how to coach your client through body language and the way you act and move, and how you encourage and connect with your dog to go do certain tasks and so on. And I've seen trainers be amazing like at that, and impress me, and other ones I'm like, you really don't know this, like, to me this is basic. um and usually, if they'll listen, I'll just give them advice to help them be better trainers, because what's better than helping people be their best selves? And maybe you'll be surprised and learn something from them too, because we all have weaknesses and strengths that are dumbfounding on both ends of the spectrum. Um, and we can help sharpen each other.
Yeah. Would it ever be advisable to do like a joint consultation, like having a trainer and a behavior expert at the same time, or is it easier or better to do one and then the other?
Um, Typically, I think it's better to start with a behavioralist if you think you have a behavioral issue. Because once again, to me, behavior is the foundation, the stable relationship, stable mind, the skills of communication, which is not just telling your dog to do stuff, but listening to what the dog is thinking, feeling too. That real connection. And once you have that, you can really go far with training. Um, but sometimes trainers can come out and help you too, and that's good too. A lot of my clients are some of the best trained dogs I've ever known. well, the dog clients, not just the people,
I was just
um,
like,
but
wow,
they have
okay.
some of the most really well trained dogs, like rally champions, that have severe behavior issues because training doesn't cure behavior problems, unless you're helping solve their emotional issues and then using the training in that context.
So is it possible that sometimes the training can actually cause the behavioral issues to begin with?
Cause it? No. I have seen training, certain training techniques and certain intensities of training
Exasperate.
exasperate already existing behavioral issue. Like dogs have real bad anxiety. I've seen people ramp them up even more and be really excited to go do a very intense job, and it's just making them so much more anxious. And that dog needs other tasks besides that that can help them also learn how to dial themselves back and to be calm and to be thoughtful and to be precise, rather than just ramping them all up to go, like, for instance, rally work or agility.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gone to clients' agility platforms when I tell them, well, yeah, your trainer's telling you to do this because that's what works with most dogs, but how about you calm them down? You'll see them perform better, these dogs. Because to me, it's kind of a sliding scale. Like, there's a sweet spot of excitement, and that varies based on different dogs and their baseline. So if dogs are already really anxious and you're getting them even more anxious, you're going way beyond their ability to really calm themselves enough to think enough to do a task for
Mm-hmm.
you. Um, and you need to dial that back so they're a little more conscious but have enough energy still to do the task fast and intensely, but they are more thoughtful and able to listen. And so some dogs you need to dial that way down, especially if they have already fear and anxiety issues.
Okay.
But as for trainers coming out at the same time as behaviorists, I think that could be done. But that would wildly that would be based very specifically on the individuals involved.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could do well, working with a trainer in a behavioral situation, depending on the safety level. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if it's a dog that has a big bite history, that'd be very risky. Um, I would have to trust and know this trainer, and they would have to um, know how to handle themselves in
Mm-hmm.
that situation.
So then
Because
this is something that you haven't experienced yourself. You haven't done a trainer with you at the same time, but is it something that you would be opposed to?
no, I think also the biggest problem, you have to remember, this is about people. This job's about teaching the people that live with the dog and
Mm-hmm.
cramming information into their heads that they can digest and then use immediately. And I think having a trainer and a behavioralist there at the same time, bombarding them with different messages, even if they're the same
Could
message,
be overwhelming.
it's just too much information at one time, and you have to prioritize. All of us only have so much we can bite off and chew,
Mm-hmm.
and some people can really take a lot, and some people really can't take much. And even myself, I have to dial in how much information I'm packing into my consultations based on how much those people can absorb.
Yeah. Well, I imagine it's probably difficult for you to do this sometimes because you do get very passionate about this, and when somebody is passionate about something, they kind of pour everything into it. So,
I had that problem earlier on. I think I mostly have that under control now, but there, I have my moods,
you have your moments.
good and bad.
Well, I
I'm
suppose
only
there's nothing wrong
human.
with it. Yeah. So, going to the behavior part, kind of the same question though. Like, would it be advisable to bring out two different kinds of behavior experts onto a similar job, or would there be, in your opinion, like too much conflict with how people do things?
Well, let's see it this way. When it comes to a single family with two or three dogs, more than one person would be too much.
Mm-hmm.
For the same reason, having a behaviorist and a trainer, it's about paying attention to too many people. And how in sync with their ideology those people are, and if they're in conflict or seem to like have such a different way of delivering the same message, it may seem like different
Mm-hmm.
messages, and there's a lot of complications. I think it's just overkill.
Overkill,
Yeah, it's like sending a nuclear bomb to drive a nail into your woodshed. It's just too much.
but it works.
Well, not really, because then you don't have a woodshed, but then you don't have to worry about it. So
You probably don't know where the nail is either.
yeah, it's liquid now. Um, yeah, it's kind of just overkill, and um, I don't know. I'm sure if you get two or three behavior experts into a room and ask them a question, you'll get five answers.
Sounds like the start of a joke. It's like, so five dog behavior experts walk into a bar, like,
Oh, I'm sure there's a great punchline there somewhere. I'll have to think about that one. Um, yeah, I think though, if you use if you're talking about a job where the job is evaluating a lot of shelter dogs,
mm-hmm.
well, duh, having more behavioralists, if you have like 20 dogs to go through, can be helpful. Once again, as long as they're skilled equally, it's going to be helpful.
I imagine. I mean, you had even said this is a newer field, so I imagine everybody is skilled at a varying degree of ability.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about life. No one person is perfect at enough stuff to be self-sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I have a very broad way of dealing with and helping a broad number of people because of my thirst for absorbing as many techniques and ideas and things from as many people as possible, whatever I find useful. Um, but everyone has their limits, and where I may excel with like the people and some other things, there might be some people that'd be much better with the dog, or certain specific behavior issues. But obviously, I do my best to be as perfect and open as possible.
So if somebody consults with you and they're not getting it, or they don't feel that things are working out in their favor the way they're going, you've got no problem with saying, well, hey, maybe you should try somebody else, or maybe you can look into this individual, maybe they'd be a better fit for you.
Well, sometimes that's happened, and I'll tell people, well, if you're willing to give me another chance, and now I know where I was lacking, or I know where you information you need, and sometimes I'll come out like really cheap or even free, depending on how far I have to drive, and to try to help them out, because my goal is to help the dog. I'm only taking payment because I live in this world that I need to pay money to pay bills. And if I thought if I was funded completely, like by a millionaire or billionaire, and took care of all my needs, I probably would still charge, just because people don't seem to respect or listen to what they didn't pay for. There's been times I've thought about not going on consultations that other people have paid for, like rescues sometimes pay me to go out to help an adopter or a foster home. And those situations are so rare that the people actually listen to what I have to say, because they're not fully invested. They've already kind of checked out, and then they're also not paying for me, so they don't have to care about listening to every word I say and my advice. And the few times where that has worked out is because the people didn't care about the money. Obviously, they cared about the dog. And you can't ask the average person, even though I think you should, but you can't really ask the average person to love and care and dedicate their heart and mind and energy to a dog that they have had for 3 weeks or a month.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for me, it's no problem. I mean, if I say this dog's now mine, click, that's it. I'm going to be there for it no matter what. But the average person, unfortunately, there's varying levels of love, unfortunately, with people and their animals especially. And I see quite a spectrum of how people. I think I actually love some of my clients' dogs more than they love their dog. Not saying they don't love their dog, but the level of understanding and love, the connection I have with that dog will actually be more excited to see me after 24 hours than they'll be seeing that my client after they boarded with me for a month. They'll be, oh, it's you.
So
and then I come out after a day and like, oh my God, it's him.
If your dog goes missing in the middle of the night, the suspicion struck.
That's happened. I've had dogs that I worked with for like a year escape their parents' house and show up at my door, hoping for a walk.
Okay, that was supposed to be hypothetical, but apparently it is not.
I've had a few clients get real jealous and upset. And they weren't like mad at me, but they were just upset and frustrated that he seems to love you more than me. Well, walk your dog more. Maybe if you walked him more, maybe if you listened to them like I did, maybe if you talked to him like I did, and that's kind of what I did for you on the consultation, but you didn't take it to heart, and you're busy. The dog just loves me in a way that, maybe not more than you, but loves me in a way differently, because I represent fun times, safety, and exploration and
Every
conquering
everything
fears and
that they could do
hmm
if they would make the effort,
yeah,
take
or
the
have the
advice, and
time.
do it.
Some people just don't. People's lives are busy. They just don't have the
Yeah.
time to do. I mean, it's my full time job to do these things with the dogs, so I don't judge people too harshly when they pay a lot of money for me to do that, and they have a long job every day and
Hmm.
kids and you know other things in life that distract them, and that's why I offer those services because that dog needs it regardless, whether it's that owner or me. That dog needs to walk. Fish swim, birds fly, dogs they walk and mark territory, and if they don't get to do that, they don't live a fulfilled life, and sometimes they literally go kind of nutty. My dog Mimo, if when he was young, up until he was 6, if he didn't get a walk at least every other day, his behavior issues would spike
Mm.
like because he was bored and his mind was like, getting in trouble because he wasn't. I don't believe a tired dog is a good dog. I think a contented dog is a good dog, one that's accomplished something with the energy they spent and
Hmm.
felt that connection and did that job for you and you're proud of them and they're happy of what they did and it was entertaining for them. They come home, I can rest now, and that was
Hmm.
Mimo. And if he didn't get that, he just gets so frustrated. His mind would start looking for trouble to get into, and
I
yeah,
think I think I can honestly relate to that because I've
some
only
people can.
well, and I say that because I've only recently started working again. As you know, I've been off for most of the year with my back and everything
Mm.
else. So I did just start working, and this past week was my first full week of training, and it was like, oh my god, it's Wednesday already. Like I forgot how much time flies when you're working, and then when you get off work, you're just like, I feel a lot more content than all the other days of just moping around the house for
Yeah, I don't
all
know if
day.
everyone understands that, but I hope they do. I hope people understand that when you go and do a task in a job and you take care of your needs and you help someone accomplish a task and those people acknowledge that and you've exerted yourself, but you're not exhausted yourself. You still have some
Hmm.
energy when you get home to do what you love as well. Um, but you don't have that excess energy and that anxiety and all those worries that you couldn't do anything about. And dogs are somewhat similar, a little simpler. But when a dog knows that they have a place in not just your heart and not just physically in your home, but a place in the function of their life. Even if that's as simple as going to mark new territory and explore things and smelling stuff and peeing on stuff, or playing with you or doing some stupid trick, that dog knows that they have a secure place, a function in your home too. And how much more happy can anyone be if they know that they can perform a simple task that's within their abilities and it's valued by someone and that someone loves and cares for you and wants you there.
So let me ask you this one here. What do you think we need more of? Behavior experts or trainers?
Right now, I think we need more behavior experts, and we need more trainers that know more about behavior, and more behaviors that know more about training. I think we need to meld the worlds a little bit more, but also still know that they're separate and know,
Mm-hmm.
when it's time to call in an expert in one field or the other.
And what kind of person do you think should go into one or the other? Like, what are some qualities that one should have that maybe the other one would use
Hmm.
differently?
That's no, I'm not an expert on behavior experts, but
What?
yeah, the dog part. But I think that a good trainer and a good behaviorist share some traits such as godlike patience um, with everyone, including yourself, maybe especially yourself. Um, a self awareness of one's own emotions and how that impacts others, and not just that, but what to do about them. Because all this stuff starts with you. Like my behavior work starts with the core of who I am. My patience, my bravery, my intellect, my caring, my love, all that. That's how personal this work is for me. And I don't think a lot of people can understand that. But in my opinion, the best people in this field were basically formed for it. They're almost genetically designed for it. You have to be built in every way for it. You have to be tough and emotionally, so you're not a flag in the wind with the emotions you get to face because you face people that have been hurt by their dog, that have seen their dog hurt others, hurt other people, other animals. Um, And these people desperately love their dog,
Mm-hmm.
and they're about to lose their dog after all, also suffering all that trauma, and that's tough to see.
Yeah. So let me wind this down now. I think we've hit the pinnacle right here. The most important question involving training versus behavior. Settle it once and for all. Can you actually teach an old dog new tricks?
Absolutely. If the dog isn't senile, and still can walk on their own legs, maybe even not that much. As long as they have their mental faculties and are still breathing, you can pretty much teach them a new trick.
I want to see you teach a 15-year-old dog a new trick.
I have one in the other room. I just taught
crap.
some the other day. Once again, that's kind of more training. Tricks are more training than behavior. I being an animal person, I should at least know how to train something.
I was gonna say, yeah.
My previous dog, Hero, I had some people half jokingly say, "Oh well, you mustn't be a very good trainer because Hero's not really that great on leash, or he doesn't know how to shake my hand when I ask him for his paw, or he doesn't sit immediately when you tell him to," which is just not a bull terrier thing. They're partners. They're not just slaves who just, I say this and you do it immediately.
Right.
They're going to harden up. You're going to make your job a lot harder if you put too pushy. But I told him, I look him in the eye, but like, well, number one, I'm not a trainer, so that's irrelevant. And number two, you know what trick he's performing right now? He's not biting you. I'm a behavior expert. This is a terrified dog that has tried to bite multiple people, has bitten at least one person, and tries to bite kids in the face. And now he loves kids. He can be out in public. He's tolerating or even enjoying you petting him and you're talking to him. And you're going to complain to me about the fact he pulls me every once in a while on a leash and doesn't sit exactly when I tell him to. Your priorities are in the wrong spot. And that's a good question, and that's a good point, because to me, that's a major difference between behavior and training. It's where the focus is and what you're really trying to accomplish and what you should accomplish first, which is a dog that's not wildly trying to attack the public, that its greatest trick is just not biting someone, and that it's not in its own mental prison, in its own anxiety. It knows how to manage those. It knows you will help them manage those. It knows that you won't break their trust by forcing them to stay in a situation where they've reached their limit, that you watch that. You care about them enough that you're going to help them with that, and you won't keep them or put them in a situation like that. And sometimes that's what it needs to be, and that's a big difference between training and behavior. It's not tricks. This is life-saving stuff.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself if I actually knew what I was talking about. So,
well,
awesome.
Thanks for the great questions.
Well,
Very good questions.
Somebody's got to do it. It might as well be me.
That's why you're here, Tommy. Tommy. But yeah, do you think, is there anything else? Do you think we missed anything? You have any questions about behavior?
I think that's a good way to, like I said, I thought that was a good note to end it on, was settle the age-old debate with that. But I mean, in the end, like you said, it all kind of blurs together. There's a distinct difference between the two, but like everything else, you could kind of use a little bit of this and a little bit of that and get you where you need to be.
Yeah, and in the end, the whole point is that training is not versus or against behavior and vice versa, that they're two sides of the same coin. They say different things, they have different functions, but ultimately our goal is the same. We want a happy dog that is obedient and that's functional in our world, that it's not disrupting too much of our lives, but we're also accommodating who they are as an animal and as a dog, and that we find a way to respect each other and function the best we can. And that's all any of us can do.
Mm-hmm.
More than most of us do sometimes.
Yeah, it sounds like a wonderful message to me.
Yeah,
I think you hit the nail on the head with the nuclear bomb.
Hit the nail on the hammer.
Hammer on the nail.
Well, this has been the Captain Spish Dog Behavior Podcast. I'm Kyle, Captain Spish.
First mate T. Tommy right here.
And may dog be with you. We will talk to you next time.
Au revoir.
Yeah. What are you, French?
unconventional, but it worked.
And I never tell clients, just like I never tell the dogs not to be scared.
Unfortunately, dogs don't have the ability to just talk it out with you.
See, there's all kinds of different types of bites, but I'll get into that later. What's happened here? How did this start? How can I help you? You reward good behavior and you discourage or redirect bad behavior into good behaviors. Warm talk, anecdotes, stories, get to know me, get to know them.
Yeah.
What you do or don't do with that dog, how you handle that dog, how you think and feel, and what you do with your thoughts and feelings around that dog. And it's going to be for the rest of that dog's life.
You can't just unplug the corgi and plug him back in. I'm going to be open and honest about it. And that was like watching art